repeat the same paper on Tuesday. So those who join today, on Tuesday morning, we look at a different paper. Maybe the value addition from my perspective would be more if we look at 2 or 3 papers before we conclude the unit. So today we'll do this paper for November 2018. Then on Tuesday sunrise, I'll look at another paper. And God willing, on Friday next week, we'll look at another paper. So we'll have done 3 papers and we'll be better placed in terms of being able to tackle this exam. So employee resourcing paper has 2 sections. There is section A and section B. The paper, you are allowed 3 hours. Section A has answer question 1 in this section, and that question 1 is compulsory. Then section B has answer any 3 questions from this section. Section B has questions 2 to questions 6. You are supposed to do 3. So if you look at section A, question 1, and it is compulsory, the maximum points you get 40 marks. You look at section B, there's 4 questions in which you are supposed to do 3. 3, each question at 20 marks, the maximum available is 60 marks. So the import of this is so that we appreciate the dynamics when it comes to the tackling of the questions, which direction do we go to first? Normally, I would advocate that somebody attempt section B before they attempt section A. My reasoning is, for the most part, section A has a question 1 with a case study. And the case study question is a bit more demanding in terms of you have to read the case, you have to internalize the case, you have to understand it and start to decipher where you will get the points for each of the questions that the examiner will raise from the case study that you will have read. That by the time you are done with section A, you may be mentally exhausted at times. But remember, you are looking for a maximum of 40 marks. Section B has 60 marks. There are 4 questions, you do 3. So it is incumbent upon you to select the questions you will attempt correctly so that you do not find yourself in any difficulties where you are encountering maybe time constraints. You have to plan and ask yourself, question 1 has 40 marks. Of the 3 hours, how much time should I devote to the question that has 40 marks? Then the other 3 questions you will be doing have a total of 60 marks. So how much time do you devote for 60? So the reason I say I normally don't like attempting question 1 first is, for the most part, you may find yourself exhausting all your mental capacity pursuing 40 marks instead of focusing on getting 60 before you come to look for 40. So you select the right questions. You will find all these questions you can attempt. Supposing we adopt that you want to start with section B. Section B, we have 4 questions. For purposes of this discussion, we'll look at all the questions. But if I were a student, I read through. Then you select those that you feel you will get maximum marks in the question. You look at section B, 3 questions. 2A. Who will read for me question 2A?
I will read, teacher. It's Rachel.
Go ahead.
Okay. Question 2A. It says
Adjust. Are you able to see my screen, by the way?
Yes. Yes. Question 2A.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I can see now. Job analysis is a cornerstone of the human resource function. As a human resource manager, analyze the key output of a job analysis exercise.
Job analysis. What is job analysis? That from job analysis, you want to study the job. You break it down into the smallest bits. You understand the job in details. So as to be able to prepare 2 primary documents, a job description and a job specification. So read for me the question, and then somebody to give me their suggested answers. Read for me.
Yes, sir. Job analysis is a cornerstone of the human resource function. As a human resource manager, analyze the key output of a job analysis exercise.
Analyze the key outputs of a job analysis exercise. So when you do a job analysis, what do you want to come up with? Number 1, a job description, and number 2, a job specification. Rachel, give it a try. Rachel?
I wanted to try to answer the question.
Yes.
So I'm thinking the key output of a job analysis exercise, like you say, first you have to look at the job description and then the job specification. So 1, you identify the job identification. That's what I was thinking. And then the purpose of that job, and then what is contained in that job. That's my thoughts. Am I okay, Mwalimu?
Job identification, and then the purpose.
Yes. And then after the purpose. Am I on the right path?
No, hear what others are saying first.
Can I add 1 point?
Yes.
The qualities and qualifications required to perform the job.
The qualities and qualifications required to perform the job. Anybody else? I hope you did not come here to be given a list of the answers. Okay? Because that will miss the focus. The focus of this is so that you appreciate how to go about getting the answers, generating the answers. Yes, Susan?
sorry, as you say, the key output is the job description and the job specification. But for 10 marks, I don't think that's enough. So I would go ahead to say what those two documents allow us to do in the human resources function, especially because there's a mention of cornerstone in the question. So I would speak about how a proper job analysis exercise allows us to recruit the right person, because we know the roles and responsibilities, as well as what Aluda mentioned, the person who needs to do this job. You're also able, as an output, to get the remuneration structure for that job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Job analysis is a cornerstone of the HR function. So HR is about what? Training, recruitment and selection, employee relations, safety, welfare, remuneration. The core of what HR is about. So we are told that as a human resource manager, analyze the key outputs of a job analysis exercise, relate to the cornerstone. So you do a job analysis, you'll prepare a job description and job specification. And the job description will help us. You understand the duties and responsibilities of the job, and that will facilitate your training, or rather your recruitment process. You understand what the job is about, that will facilitate training and career development programs that you will be rolling out. You understand what the job is about, you are able to determine the pay levels so as to maintain both internal and external pay equity, that your pay is competitive. You understand what the job is about, then you're able to redesign the organization if there is need, implement changes, come up with a different structure that will better meet the needs of your organization. You are able to maintain safety and health of employees and the workplace. You are able to execute your recruitment and selection processes well, because you understand what the job is about, the duties, responsibilities of the job. Question 2B. Read.
Recruitment constitutes a major cost item in many organizations. Evaluate 5 alternative methods of filling vacant posts.
Reread, please. You know, when you read the question first, you may imagine you've understood.
Recruitment.
You internalize. Sorry, recruitment?
Recruitment constitutes a major cost item in many organizations. Evaluate 5 alternative methods of filling vacant posts.
Recruitment is integral. Recruitment is a process through which you want to be able to attract talent to your organization so that you bring in people with the know-how, with the competence required to achieve the objectives of your organization. So we are being asked by the examiner that recruitment constitutes a major cost item in many organizations. Is expensive. So evaluate 5 alternative methods of filling vacancies in an organization. Suggestions? Which points would you consider? Joseph?
Outsourcing, where a company may engage a consultant to do the job.
Anybody, somebody else?
I can try mine. I can try.
Yes, go ahead.
You evaluate both internal and external.
Sorry?
Which internal can be through internal and external.
Yes.
Of which internal can be through promotion or job rotation or such. And external is through headhunting. It can be through
Alternative.
colleges. Somebody else help me.
Poaching.
I agree with Mwalimu, I agree with whoever has just talked. I would also go external and internal and external. And external, I would really say, as she says, headhunting, advertising, and then we have recommendations.
You could also use CVs that have been sent by people blindly.
CVs that have been sent blindly.
I also want to try job rotation, and job enlargement, and maybe succession planning.
How is succession planning?
Through promotions.
So we are appreciating that recruitment is expensive. Recruitment being expensive, the organization must explore alternate ways of filling vacancies so as not to incur these expenses. The alternate ways of filling these vacancies. Sorry, who was talking?
I was going to say, I was looking at it actually from a perspective where external would be the last resort, as opposed to, internal. First exhaust all the other avenues of filling the vacant position, e.g. upskilling existing employees, through various programs so that they can fill in the vacant positions.
So that you use your existing manpower, alternative to recruitment. When you are recruiting, a cost is incurred. So you are being asked, now that you want to check on this cost, what options do you explore so as not to incur this cost. So you can promote the staff. You can redeploy staff. You may have staff within the organization in some areas, maybe government. In some department, they may be overstaffed. In another one, understaffed. You may redeploy. You may redesign your jobs so that you enlarge some jobs. Then the responsibilities are shared amongst others, allowing you to cope rather than going out to recruit. You may employ productivity improvement measures that you will have the workforce who is more productive to do a lot more. There is a programs, training programs to enhance the skills of staff that they can produce and do more and oversee more functions, more responsibilities within the organization, thereby avoiding the need to embark on a recruitment exercise, which is costly. Then there was a point raised, the first point, I believe, that you can outsource functions. At times, many a times you realize that outsourcing the function is relatively more cost effective than the actual recruitment, because when you outsource, the HR related costs for the labor is taken care of by somebody else. Your focus is on them delivering service, and you pay whatever cost you agreed to for the services to be rendered. So that is a question. You look at the notes, you will find it directly. You are expected to apply and expand your horizons as you think about how to attempt this question. Question number 3.
Before you move to question number 3, Mwalimu,
yes.
Succession planning, where, for example, if there is a promotion or a position to be filled, that is maybe a management position, if you promote from within, you are likely to save a cost as opposed to hiring externally, and then you fill in the lower position, which will be much cheaper. That was my thinking. Would that point count?
So promoting from within. I thought we talked about promotion.
No, you didn't mention that.
Bringing in the angle of succession planning, so that if you have an elaborate succession plan in place, that you have identified people that can take on additional responsibilities or other responsibilities, then you can explore. But related to that, you must be able to explain the linkage, not just throwing in and saying succession planning. Must link that succession planning to promotion and the cost elements. So that is right.
Mwalimu.
Yes.
What of poaching?
Poaching.
Yes. I'm looking at it in terms of the costs of training maybe would be reduced because you're already hiring somebody you've headhunted, you're hiring somebody who's the experience or with the knowledge required for the position.
So when you are headhunting, you bring in somebody who comes in and they fit the role. That is okay. That is a valid point. Rachel, you have something?
No, I have what I was just trying to say is, Mwalimu, according to the way you've explained, according to some of these questions, the tricky part here was in this question of recruitment, that the tricky part became whereby the recruitment constitutes a major cost. So the fact that they're saying it's a cost item, when you're looking for the alternative, make sure that the alternative doesn't impact cost in the organization. So like you say, some of these questions are not in our notes. So it's about you to think. because the way the examiner is trying to twist this question, ukisoma haraka haraka unapata 0.
If you ask to explain the channels to use in recruitment, everybody will give more than 10. But now when they twist it that way, naanza kusema aka kamutu kanitufundisha cost of recruitment kweli? Alikuwa kanatufundisha nini? Question 3A. Read for me question 3A.
Before you go to question 3, this is Betty. Before you go to question 3, can overtime also assist in filling a position? Let's say instead of hiring, we decide to introduce overtime.
I don't know, you are breaking up. Sorry.
That would otherwise suffer. Sorry, I'm just saying overtime. You can hear me?
Yes, I can get you.
Yeah, I'm saying overtime. Can you say overtime can be used to fill in a position? Let's say you have 10 people working, then one person leaves the company. So instead of hiring the 10th person, you decide to introduce maybe an overtime for people to cover up on that one person's position.
Yeah, you can explain the overtime, but that would apply if they are doing like the same job, so to speak. Then they will say, if we put in 9 hours or 1 extra hour, all of us will be able to cover the output that the other person was to have generated. But you do not necessarily have scenarios where the people to replace will be in the same level doing the same kind of job. There may be situations that, or more often than not, you will find they are in different levels, different jobs. So you have to redistribute, redesigning the job, redistributing these duties to other people would be a more optimal option. So if you explain the overtime, you must be cognizant of that it will apply if, because if I work overtime and whatever you are doing is outside the scope of my work, really, I will still not have replaced you. Question 3A. Fenton. Nataka kusonga. Ndio tumefanya one question, 30 minutes.
Sasa juu ya hiyo,
haya sema.
Nitasema na nikusomea question.
Haya basi.
And also to add on the point of overtime, it's also something which is a subject of debate because not everybody will want, and you can never make it mandatory to anybody. So we go to question 3A.
Yes.
Changamka radio station has invited you to present a paper on techniques for demand forecasting. Discuss the content of your presentation.
Read, please.
Changamka radio station has invited you to present a paper on techniques for demand forecasting. Discuss the content of your presentation.
Techniques for demand forecasting. What is HR demand forecasting? You want to determine the levels of HR demand, project the levels of HR demand based on the planned activities of the organization. So which techniques do we have which you can use to make these projections? Can you get that? Joseph?
We have managerial forecasting, where the management can sit down and look for ways in which they can cope up with the uncertainties that might come in the organization in future.
Managerial forecasting. Another one.
Ratio trend analysis.
Ratio trend analysis, what does it entail?
Looking at the trends and then analyzing and coming up with a report.
Any other, Susan?
Coming up with ratio trends and then making some analysis and giving a report based on that.
Okay, Susan?
Having a look at the business plan or the strategic plan to see where the organization is going so you can plan in advance to have the skills in time.
Say that again.
Having a look at the strategic plan or the business plan so that you're able to anticipate the skills that will be needed in future so that you can recruit them in time.
Which method will be that?
Literature review, if you're reading the strategic plan and you don't sit in those meetings.
So if you employ qualitative techniques of demand forecasting, then you may review literature and be able to make your projections. Yes, Maureen?
You can look at the mathematical models where you look at the independent variables.
Mathematical models that you can apply, regression analysis, dependent variables, until you get your correct estimates. There is Delphi technique where you bring in experts to analyze the scenarios, the situation, and give you exactly how many people you will need based on the expert experience. There is benchmarking. You can benchmark with other organizations that have employed best practices in industry and try to copy part of what they do and get right. There is scenario analysis, works closely with managerial judgments, that you bring in managers to assess, evaluate what is planned, evaluate the various scenarios, and then give projections on what is to happen going forward. Question 3B. Nani alitusomea ile ingine asome tena? Fenton.
Sweet Aroma Coffee House placed an advertisement in the local dailies for key positions which attracted a few applicants. Explain the factors that might have led to the poor response.
Iko kwa notes?
Hai hakuna.
Haiko kwa notes. How are you expected to answer what is not in the notes? That is a kizungumkuti. The expectation is you understand what recruitment is, the channels of recruitment, the advantages, disadvantages of these channels. You've internalized the concepts so that you have placed an advertisement, but you get poor response. What factors would account for the poor response? Susan, you're the first to raise your hand.
The first one that comes to mind is using the wrong medium to advertise. For example, you're looking for 20-year-olds and you put it in the newspaper as opposed to social media. A second one is possibly the way the job was written was not clear. So the applicants could not tell if they fit the role or not. Thank you.
So the first one, she talks about using the wrong medium, that you don't get to your target grouping. The second one, sorry, Susan, come back again. Second one?
The second one is that the advertisement was not well written in terms of what the tasks or duties or responsibilities are. And so the people you are targeting did not understand that it was them you were looking for.
So it is not clear that it doesn't hit the right candidates that you are seeking during the recruitment. Rachel, I can see your hand up.
Mwalimu, can you also say the timing of the advertisement?
Sorry, my mic was faulty. Okay, me, I wanted to say maybe there was a limited range of candidates and then they needed specific skills. That's why most people could not apply. That's what I was thinking.
That there was a limited what?
Range of candidates. Like maybe the skills that they wanted, the number of people they required, the skills were minimal. That's why most people could not send in their application.
Closely ties with use the wrong medium, because when you use a wrong medium, then that you not get many of the target audience. But good explanation.
Wrong timing.
Timing of the advertisement.
Yes.
In terms of what? Expound briefly.
When you look at the reach in terms of perhaps the dailies, there are days when they record very little or fewer sales as opposed to other days where they hit optimal. So sometimes you might advertise perhaps on a day, let's say on a weekend when people don't read newspapers, for example. I'm just saying an example. Then people don't get to see the advert.
So if you advertise on the Friday nation is like the nation for jobs. You get it, you will get copies and copies of job advertisements. Until the government came up with that pull out of his, all jobs basically were advertised in the Friday nation. So if you wrong timing, also you advertise during festive season, Christmas, it's likely you may hit the right kind of target that you are looking for. Fenton?
Malim? Sorry.
Yes, Madam. I would also look at this question from an organizational point of view.
Right.
Whereby some organizations have a very, very bad reputation.
Yes.
In terms of what they do, in terms of the remuneration packages, or working conditions, and then increased levels of turnover. So candidates will not be sufficiently willing to actually apply for jobs in these organizations.
So the poor reputation that the organization has in its industry will affect the advertisement. So that if we are known to be an organization that pays poorly and treats employees poorly and with poor HR practices, however much you will advertise, you don't get it right. Anything else?
Malim, wanted to add on timing. The opening and closing time for receiving the applications might have been short, hence the fewer applicants.
Opening or closing time may not have been sufficient. Anything else? There may be challenges in terms of the kind of skills you are looking for may be lacking in your market. So that however much you advertise, you may still not get candidates. The other time we had this tallow oil building or drilling and putting up the infrastructure in Turkana area. They have to get welders from, is it India, some country? Because we don't have skilled, trained, locally available. There is an aspect
What
of
about the
application
location?
process that you want to employ. You may have a very tedious application process that by the time somebody completes the process, it's like they were doing an exam. That may affect the success of your application.
Mwalimu, could you also say the format of the advert and the placement? Yeah. So you put a small advert and the people don't see it. So
Format,
it might be
structure
yes.
of the advert.
Yeah.
The style, we call it style and content of the advert. It may not reach.
Mwalimu, about location?
Location in terms of what?
The job could be in a place where it's not very conducive for the applicants. Suppose maybe assume you're advertising for a teacher, for teachers in an area which is prone to bandits or something like that. Security issues.
Like Garissa.
Garissa such.
Yeah.
Location. But Kenyans are willing to live and work everywhere. Even after this Al-Shabaab and the attacks in Garissa and Mandera and those areas, you still have people wanting to apply and go and work there.
But Mwalimu, fewer teachers won't.
The examiner with the explanation, I have no issue. That's, I can relate it maybe to maybe the candidates may be switched off by the kind of organization that you are. The location where you are may not be appealing. Question 4A. Nani anasoma? Fenton.
Yes.
Question 4A.
Outline 5 factors that are likely to determine levels of employee productivity in an organization.
Outline 5 factors.
Outline 5 factors
Go on.
that are likely to determine levels of employee productivity in an organization.
What is the examiner asking for here? In our discussion in class, we looked at labor productivity. What is labor productivity? And measures of enhancing labor productivity. But the examiner is saying, outline 5 factors that are likely to determine the levels of employee productivity in an organization. 5 factors that are likely to determine employee productivity in an organization. Wenye hawajaongea ndio nataka kusikia. Kama umeongea nyamaza. We are 26.
Mwalimu, can I say employee engagement? If the employee feels that they're engaged, consulted, involved in the decision making, they will be more willing to contribute and put more efforts in the objectives of the organization, hence increased productivity.
So if the level of employee involvement, engagement in what the organization, the management of the organization is doing. Number two, those who have not spoken.
Mwalimu, what about working conditions, the environment? Because when you're working in a conducive environment, you'll be able to produce, to be able to work well and perform well.
The converse would be what? Frida?
Yes, Malim. Yes, Malim.
What will be the converse?
Employees will be able to perform, having in mind, like maybe, let's say, for example, the welfare. They have maybe a welfare a group that will be able to cater for their needs. Maybe they have a medical cover. No, you know, they are now set that they know in case I'm sick, I'm covered. I don't have to think about medical bills and all those.
So several factors affecting labor productivity of the labor. Have you given the technical? Consider the technical factors, the machinery, the equipment, computerization, automation of operations to help in productivity. So that if somebody is using computerized, automated, modern equipment and machinery, is more productive. Look at organizational factors. Within the organization, do you have a clear structure in place? A clear structure that sets out the various departments, accountabilities, communication channels, span of controls, functions for every position, clearly specified in the structure. If that is there and the structure is implemented, likely to be more productive. The management. What kind of management style is employed in the organization? Management in terms of, are they professional in terms of how they do things? Scientific in approach? Are they focused, future-oriented, and able to provide the conducive work environment that employees seek to excel in their industry? Productivity is affected by personnel factors. Do you have the right number of employees with the right skills and competence, who are motivated, who are adequately rewarded and driven towards achieving the objectives of the organization? Productivity is also affected by, say, governmental rules and regulations that are in place. Do you adhere to the rules, regulations set by government impacting operations and production activities in your area or not? Productivity is affected by, do you have sufficient resources, financial resources and non-financial resources to finance production-related activities? You do that, you get it right in terms of production of labor. Productivity, where exactly is your farm located? Do you have access to raw materials, to requisite infrastructure? to skilled workforce, good security. I mean, if you're operating in an area that is prone to insecurity, you will even reduce the working hours. You cannot afford to work or even operate at night because of such factors. Bobby Fenton.
Yes, Malim.
Bobby.
Treasurer Commercial Agencies has made plans to lay off some employees, citing inability to sustain the wage bill. As a human resource manager, explain the alternative measures that the organization may embrace to avoid the layoff.
Layoffs. Maybe during COVID, when COVID comes in, then the company decides we cannot sustain our workforce because of reduction and almost stop in operations. So they decide that they want to lay off staff. But the examiner is saying that Treasurer Commercial Agencies has made plans to lay off some employees, citing inability to sustain the wage bill. As a human resource manager, explain alternative measures that the organization may embrace to avoid layoffs. So the organization is thinking of laying off because of inability to sustain the wage bill. So you, as a HR manager, what alternatives do you want to explore so that the organization does not lay off staff, but we can embrace these alternatives? Rachel, your hand is raised. Though we umeongea, so ongea.
Okay, I'm trying. Restructuring. The organization can restructure, whereby and make sure make some of the employees be on contract, others be casuals, and others can also be on a hourly paid. So restructuring. The organization can restructure as opposed to layoff.
Restructuring the organization. You can even change the terms and forms of engagement. Silas?
Yes, good evening, Mwalimu. I was thinking about job sharing.
Expound on job sharing.
That other than layoff employees who work in the same department and related jobs can work in different hours. Maybe yes, when we are working in the same department, one comes in the morning, the other one comes in the evening, interchangeably, other than laying them off. Sorry.
You're confusing two concepts. There is job sharing, but you are explaining it with the reduction in working hours. Where under job sharing, we'll be saying...
Yes, straighten my point kindly. Thank you.
Sorry? Silas?
Thank you. Panel beat my point, Mwalimu. Thank you.
I was just saying that under a situation where the alternative is either to lay off staff, so you're exploring how best can we work without laying off this staff. So you look at, let us reduce the working hours. So you work for 4 hours, I work for 4 hours. And then the working hours have been reduced, and maybe even the pay is reduced. But at least we are still in the payroll, rather than when you are laid off, you are told, go home. So there is some aspect of job sharing, But normally when we use job sharing, we normally apply it in a scenario where maybe two people are doing 3 jobs. So that you do job A, I do job C, and job B, we put in hours and we share. But in this case, we are looking at reduction of working hours. So I do 4 hours and half day, you work half day, and then they pay for the job is shared amongst us. Any other option that you can consider?
Hey, Malim.
Speaking of salaries and overtime.
Say that again.
I don't know whether that point has been said, freezing of overtime.
You freeze, you do away with overtime. You cannot have situations where employees are threatened with layoffs and some people pretend to be working overtime. So do away with overtime. That everyone works normal hours. The extra hours that somebody wants to put in, let the people threatened with the layoffs to work those hours. Yes, Susan, then Stella.
I have a question. Are you allowed to make assumptions as you answer the question? This is what I mean. If the layoffs are because of something that is temporary, then the answers, I think, would be different as opposed to something that is permanent. For example, if the organization is selling a specific business unit or excuse me, product line, then that is of a permanent nature. So you might extend the duration that people work, but eventually they'll be laid off. But if it's a situation where it's something temporary like we have with COVID, then I think that the answers would be different. As I answer this question, in my first statement, would I be penalized for saying, assuming that it is a temporary situation, this is what I would do?
Layoffs are normally temporary, are perceived to be temporary, that the business environment is bad, so we lay off and reduce the workforce until such a time that operations pick up again, we bring them back in. But when we retrench, becomes permanent, they go. So here the examiner is talking about layoff. And the expectation is you've internalized and appreciate a layoff is a temporary measure that is employed by the organization when situations call for. But if you want it permanent, we do retrenchment. The examiner would have talked about retrenchment.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Stella?
I was thinking of a company introducing virtual offices or a work from home program to reduce on rent costs.
Okay.
Instead of letting.
So instead of letting premises, you can redesign and have some people work from home so that you reduce costs. You reduce your operational costs. You will not have rent on premises. You will not cook for them tea. Maybe not provide lunch. Overheads of electricity and such will go down. And you may also reduce on, you don't pay them commuter allowance. So you may check also some allowances. Why should I pay you an allowance yet you're working from home? Yes, Pauline?
I'm just thinking freezing recruitment, like if there's someone who has left the organization or if people have left, you don't replace them for the period when the company is struggling. So you just do
freeze.
Yes.
Those who you don't have new people coming in, yet you want to lay off others. So you should learn, in fact, you can expound that into 2 points. Where I talk about hiring freeze, no hiring new labor until the layoff situation is sorted. And 2, those who exit as a result of natural attrition are not to be replaced. If somebody unfortunately dies or retires or resigns or whatever reason, you do not replace those who exit as a result of natural attrition. Queen Rose.
I would say salary deductions, whereby you can introduce the current employees to be paid down half salaries instead of having some go home and have the rest be paid the full salaries.
Salary reduction for employees so that everybody at least gets something small rather than some getting and others not getting. Mercy?
I'm thinking of reducing of benefits or just removing benefits. For example, if an organization gives out airtime, just benefits that make life comfortable, you can reduce on that instead and have salaries for the rest.
You can reduce some perks, some benefits, just so that at least we get the basics, the salary. Rachel?
Mine I was thinking of, but it still applies to restructuring the organization. When you decide to merge some departments in the organization, you merge them together. For example, sales, like where I work, we have sales, we have marketing. So you can merge them together, also with media, because they actually do almost the same thing.
Merge. Fenton?
Yeah, just to add on what has already been said,
yes.
You can also explore the option of unpaid leave. That could be one. You can also go further into venturing into new businesses, which actually create more income by using the same workforce that is existing. And you can also try the voluntary retirement exit plans, which with some levels of maybe we say, is it reward or something like that? Voluntary retirement schemes whereby you can decide to pay people today for a certain amount of money, which might not actually be the actual when they retire voluntarily or at the end of their term. So all those are options that one can explore.
Aya, tusomee the next question. Unless kuna mtu amebaki, you can also have other like sabbatical leave. Tell them, take a leave of absence. We will not pay you for the duration until things pick up. Thank you for that. Fenton, 5A.
Dynamic Road Construction Limited launched a health and safety program aimed at reducing the rate of accidents in the organization. Explain the components of the program. Dynamic Road Construction Limited launched a health and safety program aimed at reducing the rate of accidents in the organization. Explain the components of the program.
So unapiga hesabu unasema, wa aka kamtu kanifundisha hii kweli. The thinking of the examiner here is you are doing HR is integrated. So that these are things that have been done elsewhere. So in this case, we are told Dynamic Road Construction Limited launched a health and safety program aimed at reducing the rate of accidents in the organization. If you check the syllabus of employee resourcing from start to finish, you will not get that. Health and safety is in maybe the acts, and if you do the acts basically, or if you do, which unit do you cover it?
Guess it's employee relations.
Employee relations?
Yes.
So you are being asked, the organization launched a health and safety program aimed at reducing the rate of accidents. Explain the components of the health and safety program. Health and safety. Part of what you do in HR is maintain employee safety and health. You cannot disregard employee safety and health. So what does a health and safety program talk about? Anybody to attempt?
Mwalimu,
Yes.
I can start with the records of incidents, maybe accidents that have occurred, or fatalities, injuries, and an overview of how these accidents occurred and what were the main causes and how could we avoid a recurrence.
Record keeping for accidents, injuries occurring at the workplace. Anybody else, especially those who've not spoken?
Risk assessment.
Expound.
They'll do a risk assessment of the organization to see what are the hazards.
You do a risk assessment so as to identify the job hazards that employees encounter. Because when you have this job, you know the hazards that you encounter, then you can begin to mitigate them. But if you do not know, then you cannot mitigate. Anything else? Rachel? Your hand was up.
How about Mwalimu, they can focus on the compliance, government compliant in terms of the items that are needed, what should be followed in terms of industries like manufacturing industries.
So you'll find OSHA.
Yes, OSHA.
Stipulate what you need to provide if you have to have a safe workplace. So compliance with legal requirements is of essence if you want to maintain or to manage safety. Silas?
I have 2 points, and one is forming of a joint committee that will be checking on the health and safety within the organization. And also there must be working rules and procedures to be a checklist for the accidents and the safety within the organization.
For you'll have a health and safety committee. Indeed, the requirement by the OSHA Act. And then you will need to have set of rules, checklist that what you must do at all times. Before you get into the factory or the workshop, you must get into the changing room, get into protective gear, put on. The checklist will show, was the employee issued with the goggles, tick? Was the employee issued with the overall, tick? Gumboot, was industrial boots? Everything was provided. Then did we check that the employee has put them on even as they got into the factory?
Mwalimu, I'm thinking also,
yes,
in as much as you're saying all this, you know, these guys who are actually casual, some of them don't have knowledge. So I think it's important to also have employee training and empowerment on some of these, the users of these things.
Training
so I think
and empowerment for employees. Susan, the last hand raised.
It should mention the roles and responsibilities responsibilities of everybody, the employees, the management, and the health and safety, as mentioned by my colleague Silas.
So responsibilities of all towards issues, safety, and health. So here we are saying the components of a health and safety program that you want to roll out so as to prevent accidents. You want to ensure you maintain and supervise issues, sanitation, and hygiene. You want to ensure that you have programs in place to prevent communicable diseases. You want to ensure active cooperation with relevant agencies dealing with health, the Directorate of Occupational Safety and Health. You do with the Inspectorate Department of the Nairobi County to ensure you are at par as regards what is expected of you. You want to ensure you have records, medical records in place. These are confidential records, but you must have records of staff, their medical history, the accidents, injuries, and their records. You must educate employees, as I've been saying, on issues, safety, and health. There has to be proper medical examination of staff when they are joining. You don't want a situation where an employee comes somewhere along the way and say, I got this ailment when working for you. It's when I contracted and I became asthmatic. You want to ensure there are annual checkups for persons exposed to hazards that, where necessary, protective or preventive and curative measures can be adopted before it is too late. First aid programs and emergency care for people who suffer from accidents, injuries, and hazards at the workplace. So these are things that the health and safety program would want to have. Somebody has asked about a health and safety policy. You need to have the policy in place that will give guidelines on how these things are to be done, including these health and safety programs, so that the health and safety programs will be formulated as part of the critical health and safety policy. Fenton, 5B. Training of staff, we've already mentioned. Train staff on health and safety issues.
The Employment Act 2007 stipulates the grounds under which an employee can be summarily
dismissed.
Dismissed. Discuss 5 such grounds. Grounds on summary dismissal.
Fraud.
Summary dismissed. Discuss 5 grounds. Which are these grounds? Wenye wajaongea, kama umeongea nyamaza.
Sawa, tutaongea tena.
Tutaongea.
Tusikie wakiongea kwanza.
Fighting at the workplace.
The grounds for dismissal are captured in the Employment Act.
Yes, they're there.
Including what?
Number 1, non-performance of the duties that somebody has been assigned to do.
So
or improper
performance.
Yes.
The duties assigned. Deliberately or otherwise, is ground for summary dismissal. Anything else? Asma hajaongea.
Nimeongea sana mwalimu, but yeah, we have negligence of duty, desertion, abscondment.
Absence. It's called absence.
When the
Desertion of
employee
office.
absents themselves from their workplace
Without permission.
official permission, grounds for summary dismissal.
Fraudulent activities.
Fraudulent activities. Like what?
Unethical practices.
It's called theft.
Kiba.
Theft. The act calls it theft.
The act calls it what?
Theft.
Summary dismissal in section 4.
Theft. Whiz.
You try as much as possible if you can use the language as used by the act, the better for you.
Drunk and disorderly.
What it says, eh? Drunk and disorderly.
Intoxication. That is police language.
That is police language. Say when you are intoxicated to an extent that you are unwilling, rendering intoxicated to an extent that it renders you unwilling,
unable to work,
or unable to work satisfactorily. If you are just intoxicated, you may not be dismissed. When we say what? During working hours, by becoming or being intoxicated, an employee renders himself unwilling or incapable to perform his work properly. When an employee without leave or lawful cause absents himself from the place appointed for the performance of his work. When an employee willfully neglects to perform any work which it was his duty to perform, or if he carelessly and improperly performs any work for which from its nature it was his duty. When an employee uses abusive or insulting language or behave in a manner insulting to the employer or a person placed in authority over him by employer. When an employee knowingly fails or refuses to obey a lawful and proper command, which it was within the scope of his duty to obey, issued by the employer or a person placed in authority over him by his employer. In the lawful exercise of any power of arrest given by or under any written law, an employee is arrested for a cognizable offense punishable by imprisonment and is not within 14 days either released on bail or bond. An employee commits or on reasonable and sufficient grounds is suspected of having committed a criminal offense against or to the substantial detriment of his employer or his employee. The reason I was reading verbatim from the Act so that you don't just say fighting. Umesikia mahali imesema fighting? Try to explain. Poor performance, yes. Intoxicated to an extent that it renders you unwilling and unable to perform. or when you negligently perform your duty, or when you are arrested on sufficient grounds you committed an offense and you are not released within 14 days. Because the examiner has said the Employment Act 2007 stipulates the grounds under which an employee can be summarily dismissed. Discuss 5 such grounds. So utaanza kuspeculate, you use the grounds as applied by the Employment Act 2007. Fenton, question 6.
As a newly employed human resource manager at Exit Cables Limited, you have noted with concern that deductions are randomly made from employees' wages without reference to the Employment Act 2007. Explain the rules applicable to the deduction of wages.
Deductions. How should deductions be effected? Allowable deductions. Yes, deductions.
Their third rule, Mwalimu, let me try. Their third rule should be considered and consultation also done with the employee.
Rules applicable to deduction of wages.
Statutory deductions.
What are the rules applicable? There is a third rule that the employee should at least take home 1/3. Rules applicable. Anybody else?
Mwalimu, there's any amount due maybe to a provident fund or a pension fund. An employer can deduct that.
Amounts due to
Can I try?
provident or pension fund. Deductions. Anybody else?
Statutory
Mwalimu.
deductions.
Hello.
Sorry?
Madam, I said statutory deductions. Statutory deductions.
Statutory deductions.
Yes.
Which are these?
NSSF,
Income
NHF, and PAYE as applicable.
Statutory deductions. Rules of deductions. What else?
Mwalimu,
Yes.
under the statutory deductions, I think we can also add the help for those who took loans while in tertiary institution.
Help for those who took loan while
in
in
tertiary.
the campus days. Anybody else?
Mwalimu, any request by the employee to deduct maybe in terms of him having taken loans also, but it should be something that the employee has a document signed.
The employee must have given written consent. Any other points?
In case there was an erroneous payment of maybe extra salary, so the employer can deduct that extra amount from the employee's salary.
We also talk of advances given to employees, salary advances.
Workers' contribution to provident fund, pension, and other schemes. Any amount wrongfully paid to the employee as remuneration in excess of what the worker is entitled to, on written authority of the worker, and for the time being in force, collective agreement, wage determination, court order, or arbitration. Reasonable amount for damage done to or loss of property lawfully in the custody of the employee. A day's wages in respect of each working day for the whole time of which the employee, without leave or lawful cause, absents himself from the premises of work. Any amount of shortage of money arising through the negligence or dishonesty of the employee. Any amount in which the employer has no direct or indirect beneficial interest and which the employee has requested the employer in writing to deduct from the wages. Any amount due and payable by the employee under and in accordance with the terms of an agreement in writing, and such other amounts as may be prescribed by the minister, for example, benefits such as housing. Fenton.
Mwalimu, you are too fast. Are we expected to be taking notes on what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
These things are in the notes. And I'm trying to record these. I'll share these in the platform.
We rarely go to the notes.
Sorry?
Good. Aki, you should share this record.
I hope it has recorded. Kama haija record bahati mbaya. But I'm recording so that we share in the platform. Fenton, 6B.
Okay. Talent sourcing is a key theme in modern organizations. Identify 5 strategies that an organization may put in place for effective talent sourcing.
Difficult question. What is talent?
Employees.
What is talent?
An endowed gift, often divine.
Human capital.
CIPD describes talent as what? Either the top performing 1% of executives, the top 10% of high performers, whatever their role or level in the organization. Executives with potential for board level appointments, together with high potential individuals who are identified as future leaders. Graduate trainees with potential for top leadership positions. Soma hilo swali. Fenton, umepotea?
Talent sourcing is a key theme in modern organizations. Identify 5 strategies that an organization may put in place for effective talent sourcing.
We had a question up there on recruitment.
Headhunting, Mwalimu.
But now the organization, no, the examiner is talking about talent, not general recruitment, talent. What are the strategies that the organization can use for purposes of talent sourcing?
Recommendation. Someone can recommend someone.
Headhunting.
Headhunting and recommendation. Anybody else?
Poaching.
Poaching. Is there a headhunting the same as poaching?
Yeah.
No.
What is the distinction?
I kind of think they are related, but headhunting is where you use recognized. There's some institutions that just do specifically top talent recruitment, where you place maybe a request if you get a person with this caliber of skills and things like that. But poaching is where you approach someone directly, you target someone directly, and you kind of call them and negotiate with them without necessarily going through an organization. So you entice someone directly if you know the person you're looking for.
That is what? Poaching.
Yes, but headhunting, you go through an organization, a recruitment firm that does those top talent you're looking for.
Recall we are talking about what? Being able to entice graduate trainees with the potential for top leadership positions. Being able to look at executives with potential to rising up to board levels. The top 10% high performance in the organization. Talent.
Mwalimu,
Yes.
could be leadership management programs offering such, maybe even coaching or mentoring of leadership.
The strategies, identify 5 strategies that an organization may put in place for effective talent sourcing. So you can provide leadership development programs and opportunities. They see there is coaching, mentoring schemes in place that they will come in and develop and grow in the organization. You must strive. Another strategy organizations will use is strive to become an employer of choice that everyone wants to, dreams of joining. Who is an employer of choice?
One that everyone wants to work in that organization.
They do what?
They attract talent.
No, what do they do? So that the market recognizes them as the employer of choice.
Well paid.
They have very good attractive terms.
They have good employer value prepositions.
Employee value prepositions. Which are these?
Good salary.
You want to talk to the employees and convince them of the value that you are offering, you are proposing. that you join us, this is the value that you will get. How your benefits, the perks will grow, how we'll be able to develop you to grow to become what you want to be. Employee value prepositions. The organization must create a strong employer brand as the employer of choice. But for that to succeed, the next point is the organization must deliver and fulfill expectations created in the psychological contract when employees are being attracted. When these ladies are being seduced, they are told they'll be bought for a helicopter. And they'll be going to Malindi for every weekend. Then they fall for that and
tell them.
Ground between is different.
But when they come to the ground, the person who's promising Malindi doesn't even know. Huh? Has not even passed Machakos. So you stay in the relationship because, oh, now you have children, you have what, but the psychological contract is broken. So for an organization to attract talent, one of the things it must work on is ensuring that whatever psychological contract, when the employee is joining this as the employer of choice, it has to deliver, meet the employee's expectations. Talent is attracted also by the brand performance. What is the performance of the company? What are the programs in place in the company in terms of talent management, in terms of talent development activities, so that the talent looks forward to wanting to join and work for the company? Is this in the notes?
Hapana.
In other units, yes.
In other units.
That's why you say these units are what? Integrated, interrelated. One unit speaks to the other. Now, after that, there is a case study.
Mwalimu, before you continue, maybe you can help me place, whether you can place performance appraisals or evaluations to this question about talent sourcing, when we are thinking about the executive who are performing well and they can go up the ladder to the board.
Mm-hmm. So performance management system that employs performance-related rewards, so that these people are clear and sure they perform, their efforts are recognized, and they are rewarded accordingly. That works well. Performance management and performance-related pay.
Mwalimu, I have something else to add.
Yes.
I'm thinking about communication of maybe like employee experience of within the company. They can put in their website their experience of how they've
they joined and they've grown within the company, which could also attract talent.
That when you communicate, not the organization per se, but through its employees, is the employees who are communicating as their brand, who are now the brand ambassadors, popularizing the brand out. This is what we are experiencing. That if you join us, this is what you will experience.
Testimonials.
The testimonials from the employees.
Employees.
Question 1. Ilikuwa inasema nini? Case study. Because of time, we'll not read the case. Or do you want us to read it? Is it too long or we can read it? Fenton? All right,
Yes,
so
Mwalimu.
Soma. We try and finish by 8:30. Exactly 2 hours from
Okay. Horizon Traders was established as a retail shop at a local trading center when businessman Richie Feather purchased the shop from Ben Rella in 2010. The traders' mission statement was, I quote, "Fair prices anytime." Being a monopoly at the trading center, the customer base increased rapidly, and in a span of 2 years, the shop was incorporated as Horizon Supermarket Limited. As a result, the proprietor made a decision to inject more funds from personal savings and a loan from the bank. In addition to inviting a few investors to buy shares, in 2015, efforts were made to relocate its major chains to more spacious malls with warehouses, landing zones, and ample parking. The customer base increased by 60%, making it emerge as a market leader in customer goods. In a period of 5 years, the supermarket had opened 10 chain stores to become the leading supermarket in the region, a position it holds to date. The expansion necessitated an increase in the number of staff to meet the growing needs. However, the company's recruitment and selection policy was not anchored on a well-established human resource policy. Moreover, in the last few years, the supermarket faced intense competition from local and foreign competitors, negatively impacting on its bottom line. The demand for the product had gradually decreased, and the trend was attributed to shrinkage of its customer base. In a span of 1 year, the operation costs increased by 30%, while labor costs stood at 50% of the total revenue. This trend has since prompted the
Amepotea.
This trend has since prompted the management to embark on re-engineering the organization. The first move was aimed at reducing labor costs by 20% through right-sizing. The management envisaged that a total of 100 employees could be retrenched with immediate effect. The second intervention was aimed at seeking a strategic partner in an effort to improve efficiency and effectiveness. The decision to retrench some employees triggered a reaction from the workers' union. The union accused the management of breaching the labor laws and the collective bargaining agreement. The union argued that the law requires that the three parties under the tripartite agreement should reach a consensus before such an action is taken. To this end, the union filed a case in court in which it accused the management of targeting the employees who constantly challenged management decisions under the guise of re-engineering, yet the organization had an established policy which stipulated the criteria for selecting would-be retrenchees. The management defended itself against the accusation, stating that it had observed the provisions of the company's employment policy. In a letter presented to the union by the board through the human resource director, the management argued that it was legally allowed to retrench workers on account of inability to pay their salaries and allowances. In presenting the letter to the union, the human resource director indicated that the affected employees could have preferential claim for a bonus, accrued leave days, and arrears of their salaries, wages up to the last date of employment. The union bitterly disagreed with the director, stating that some of the employees had been offered a severance pay without observing the provisions of the policy. The human resource director explained that the pay of package had been computed in compliance with the existing labor laws as well as the company policy, and affirmed that the top management was committed to paying all the terminal dues on time. In a follow-up meeting, the management resolved to undertake the following. 1. Carry out a human resource audit in the organization, develop a human resource plan policy, adhere to the relevant employment laws, diversify the company's products and services. By the end of the 2017, the management had finalized the restructuring exercise and identified a strategic partner. Employees were evidently anxious of the ongoing changes. To regain employees' confidence, the management rolled out programs of employee engagement through quality circles, joint consultative meetings, and brainstorming sessions. In addition, a master plan was put in place to address the organization's long-term resourcing and identified needs. That's the end of it.
Thank you so much. Question 1.
Explain to the management the likely challenges it may face in conducting the retrenchment exercise. That's the question 1 of that.
So the long and short is, when you are looking at the case study question, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get answers from the question, from the case rather. There are those situations where you'll extract answers from the case. There are those situations that it may not be possible to extract answers from the case. So in question 1, we are being told to explain to the management the likely challenges it may face in conducting the retrenchment exercise. The move to retrench was aimed at reducing labor costs by 20%. The management envisaged that 100 employees would be retrenched with immediate effect. The second intervention was aimed at seeking a strategic partner in an effort to improve efficiency and effectiveness. The decision to retrench some employees triggered a reaction from the workers' union. The union accused the management of breaching labor laws and collective bargaining agreements. The union argued that the law requires that the three parties under a tripartite agreement should reach a consensus before any such action is taken. To this end, the union filed a case in court in which it accused the management of targeting the employees who constantly challenged management decisions under the guise of re-engineering, yet the organization had an established policy which stipulated the criteria for selecting would-be retrenchees. So what are the challenges the organization is likely to face during retrenchment?
Mwalimu, a ghost law.
Trade union.
Sorry.
challenges you are likely to encounter. Number one,
Go slow on the remaining workers.
say that again on the remaining workers.
Go slow, which results in non-productivity.
Go slow from the remaining workers.
As okay, maybe I can say as resistance towards the retrenchment.
Go slow from the remaining workers. Anything else?
Litigation.
The union has already sued, so there is a court case. Litigation. Any other challenge?
Bad company reputation.
Reputation of the company is bound to be dented. Anything else?
Exit of talent workforce amongst the remaining. You might have resignations, especially if the retrenchment is unfair.
There are talent that you want to retain, but if we know you are good, you would be confident of getting opportunities elsewhere. So the challenge that you will encounter is you will retrench some and still the remaining people
will
leave. Anything else?
Low share capital over time because of non-productivity.
So go slow, low productivity, ultimate impact, low share capital over a period of time. Question B? Question B, saa imeisha.
Discuss the importance of human resource planning to the company. 10 marks.
Importance of human resource planning. Here we are looking at what? Why would human resource planning be important to the company? The company is finding itself in a situation where now it wants to right size, telling us or pointing to an unplanned HR position. So why is human resource planning essential? The importance of human resource planning. What are we talking about here? With the context of this company and the scenario obtaining. Human resource planning will help us in ensuring that we avoid surplus or shortage of staff, thereby ensuring our labor costs are within control. Human resource planning will ensure that we have the right number of staff at the right time with the right competence and skills who will drive our organization to succeed. Human resource planning will help us in facilitating our expansion programs to ensure that the organization grows, but even as it grows, the expansion in HR position is planned. We'll be able to match the skills requirements with what is desired to ensure success of the organization. We'll be able to have in place succession plans so that we can replace those who retire, die, resign, or are incapacitated for whatever reason. Would be able to come up with training and development programs for the personnel so that they can adapt to environmental changes or changes in the business environment that the firm will be encountering. Question C. Question C.
As a human resource manager, analyze the redundancy selection criteria that should be considered in selecting workers for retrenchment.
Last in, first out.
Sorry, just read the question first.
As a human resource manager, analyze the redundancy selection criteria that should be considered in selecting workers for retrenchment.
The criteria to be used in selecting workers for retrenchment. What do you want to consider?
Last in, first out.
Sorry?
Last in, first out.
Last in, first out. That means what?
I could think one of the things we should be focusing on here is one, the skills and the knowledge that is available. And two, that's basically looking at the competencies that are available. You can also look at the age factor.
How do you mean age?
Now, in terms of age, I'm looking at, assuming one is at the late years of almost heading to retirement, and someone is just fresh, young, skilled. So in terms of age, I could, if I was the manager, I would actually consider going for someone who is a bit older, though knowledgeable, and do a redundancy program on them. And like those ones who are young and yet to give their best for years to come.
Somebody who has worked for 25 years, you will have to pay them for the 25 years. But this young and agile, you are saying maybe has worked for 2 years, you only pay for 2 years. Which one is cheaper for you? Paying for 25 years or paying for 2 years?
2 years, because even they cannot, the litigation issue in event they go that direction will not be expensive.
So, in terms of seniority, the tendency is you will find you will retrench these ones that is cheaper to the company rather than those that it will cost us an arm and a leg to retrench. Anything else you will consider? Performances, so that you don't retrench your top performers and remain with those who are not adding value. Anything else to
Critical
consider?
skills.
Sorry?
Critical skills. Critical skills for the business.
How do you mean critical skills?
There are those very critical skills that if you retrench, then your business may collapse. You know, skills that are rare, like data scientists and that are core to the business, survival for the business.
Rachel,
competencies.
right? Rachel?
So I have a question. The age factor, as in, can it lie there? Because I didn't understand the age. Someone said about the age factor, but I'm looking at it here, whereby if you have to
make someone who has worked in the company maybe for 30 or 20 years to leave, then you really need to pay them so well. So does that one apply?
That is why we've said age necessarily will not be a consideration, because it will be expensive for us to retrench those who've been with us for so long, unless they have the same number of years experience in the company. Say they all have 2 years experience, and one is 50, another one is 32. Then you can decide to retrench the 50 to remain with the 32-year-old, because they've worked for roughly the same number of years in the company. The cost would be almost the same. So you decide, let me remain with this young and agile person who will continue with us for 10 years.
I'm also thinking, Mwalimu, how about employees who are more like, let's say, disciplined employees? Like, yes, someone could be a performer, but unapata that person in the organization, I don't know how to explain, but their discipline is low, but someone else would not be performing so much, but at the end of the day, they're disciplined. So I'm looking at an employer who wouldn't want to be with someone who is in discipline at the same time, even though they're performing. So I think that could be also a consideration. Or what do you think?
Disciplinary records, you will consider that, and we cannot retrench disciplined employees and we remain with the poor performers. Because you get in organizations, as much as technical skills are critical, but the reality is most of what we do on a day-to-day basis has a lot to do with the human relations, human interactions, and how you relate and interact with the people. And work flows and goes on. So if you don't get that right, you can't hack it, even if you have the most qualified and competent person. So considerations, skills and competence, you look at performance, you look at discipline, you look at seniority, so as not to spend so much compensating when you're working the package. You look at disciplinary records, you look at the critical skills that you want to retain for the company, you look at the cost of the package to be offered, etc.
Should we think of health record, Mwalimu?
Sorry?
When health record, when management has experienced a lot of absenteeism because of often sickly employees, or that can have loggerheads with the labor laws.
Unless they take, or they opt for medical grounds, leave their job on medical grounds.
But that question will read differently, because we are talking about redundancy selection criteria by the management.
But it will be unfair to that employee. You can kick them out because they're sick.
Records,
unless you negotiate.
when these decisions will be taken, we will consider that if, for example, you've worked with us for 5 years, 3 or 4 years you've been on maternity leave.
Mwalimu wewe.
I'm telling you the truth. You'll be in the list.
That one.
That is discrimination. No,
100% discrimination. That one will be contested.
Hey, we'll sue.
The world is not. They'll not use that as a reason.
I know, but then
in their background discussions, they will make sure you're in the list, because rather than focusing on the company, you are fulfilling the promise of doing what? Multiplying.
That one, it will be a very, that's a very
psychological contract. We will sue and we will get paid.
The earth is your priority.
Now, but you know, it may be so. However, when you employ this age bracket of employees, you know their reproductive age is prime. Then you should have employed people who are past that age.
Breaching psychological contracts.
But now when retrenchments come in, we start analyzing, there are these two.
Unless there could be something else, like they have not served for long, then that could be.
You and there is this young man. Performances are the same.
But who said the man will be good?
No, your performances are the same. So we'll be
Yes, and okay.
Now you would rather now let them take a pay
outright
cut.
biased.
Yeah. Let them take a pay cut. Let them share the salary. Let them take 50%.
One day when you are seated in this panel planning for the same, you will be considering such, but you not put it down in records. Because that will
Anyway, you know, we did that during Corona time. And you know, like the expectant ladies in my organization, I didn't touch them for that reason. I did not touch them. They're giving birth for the 5th time. You don't touch that one. You better look for a drunkard man.
I think you are not. I think
You don't touch that one.
We are protected.
Yeah, and you know, that is the direction you don't want to go. You better touch that one.
We're not saying expectant.
I know.
The example of
I know.
5 years, you've gone for maternity leave 4 times.
But you know, they know that. They know that. They know that. And they know
We will not tell you that that is a reason.
But everybody
And
knows.
if an employer wants a reason to send you home, they will find a reason to send you home. That is a
you know what? You look at
Mwalimu, you might find someone is going on maternity 2-3 times and is at the best performer, and someone who has not, gone anywhere is a poor performer.
Question 40.
Let me also give some input, Mwalimu.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it has gone to the girl child.
I'm advising and they are defending.
Yes. Well, you know, you are saying about the redundancy selection criteria.
Yes.
But we're not going to the one which has higher costs alongside the labor laws. Because when you consider to be held record and then we say that one has a high cost on the labor laws, then we are going away from the question which is about the criteria. So it is to say that health record can yield to be a criteria, whether it is under carpet or it is above the carpet. It is a criteria, yes, but it has some costs, yes. But those are now the challenges of the redundancy and retrenchment in any criteria of them.
You cannot run away from the cost element. So question 1D, time is up. 1D, somebody? Fenton?
Discuss the legal provisions on the criteria for retrenchment of the employees as stipulated in the Employment Act 2007.
this was a very difficult case study.
But hizi majibu zote hazijatoka huko.
Yeah, this is difficult, man. It's a difficult case study.
One reason I chose this paper, you're expected to apply, not?
Yeah, I know. But without reading the case study, you could do this paper. But now you have no answers.
Produce notes that you crammed. Cramming
We did not
would
read
save you.
retrenchment.
Would cramming have saved you?
No, I don't even think
Hapo ungeanguka kifudifudi, cramming z.
It's application. Now you are being able to internalize and apply the concepts that we studied in class. And your know-how of HR and the practices as they are. So reread the question, Fenton, sorry.
Discuss the legal provision on the criteria for retrenchment of the employees as stipulated in the Employment Act 2007.
So what are we being asked here? Anybody?
I think the procedure or
say that again.
Is it the procedure or what to the procedure for recruitment? Sorry, for retrenchment.
I think we're being asked the same question. They ask the same answers. C. To my understanding.
Yeah, it's the same, but this time you have to it had to be in accordance with the Employment Act of 2007. That's what I thought.
then the other one, we could not, we can declare redundancy out of the act.
Mwalimu, a quick one.
Yes.
Does the Employment Act specifically talk of retrenchment, or does it talk about redundancy?
It has redundancy.
Okay, that's another thinking. Now let us put our heads together.
But now the application is, it applies to the board.
Okay.
Yes. So discuss the legal provisions on the criteria for retrenchment of employees as stipulated in the Employment Act 2007. What are we saying? Hakuna wakili kwa hii darasa.
Can we say when a company is not able to pay salaries?
Tuko na wakili.
We have human resource practitioners, lawyers of HR.
We did law by the way.
No, wakili tu mwenye alitoka kwao kwenda kusoma sheria.
Mwalimu, can we say that when a company is incapable of paying salaries?
No, you are a bit off.
I'm thinking, Mwalimu, in a layman's language, the question is trying to tell us to actually outline the grounds on which retrenchment should take place.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The legal position on the criteria for retrenchment.
Retrenchment.
So we are saying,
winding down.
When an employee is a member of the trade union, you have to notify
the trade union.
When an employee is not a member of a trade union, the employer notifies the employee personally in writing and notifies the labor office. The employer has, in the selection of employees to be declared redundant, has had due regard to seniority in time and to skill and ability and reliability of each employee of the particular class of employees affected by the redundancy. Where there is, that is number 4, where there is in existence a collective agreement between an employer and a trade union setting out terminal benefits payable upon redundancy, the employer has not placed the employee at a disadvantage for being or not being a member of the trade union. Where the employer, the employer has paid an employee declared redundant not less than 1 month's notice or 1 month's wage in lieu of notice. The employer, next point, the employer has paid an employee declared redundant severance pay at the rate of not less than 15 days pay for each completed year of service. Where the employee being declared redundant has any pending leave days, then they are paid off the leave days in cash.
Mwalimu,
Verbatim from the act.
Mwalimu.
Because the
So
act
maybe
has referred us, the question has referred us to the act. Sorry, somebody was asking?
yes, I was trying to link these answers from the act with the question looking at criteria, because I'm seeing this is more of the process of retrenchment and what is due on the employee. But the criteria, from my understanding, was more into what should, like what we answered in 1C. So I don't know, maybe the question was, from my understanding, the question was not phrased clearly as per se.
1C, we were saying, as a HR manager, analyze the redundancy selection criteria that should be considered in selecting workers for retrenchment. Who to go? We are selecting who to go. Who are we selecting? Poor performers, people with disciplinary records, people who've stayed for a shorter duration so that it will not cost us much to compensate them, people with who do not have critical skills, people with challenges in terms of health records. But now we are told, as per the act, what is the criteria? It reads what? Let me just reread it. Discuss the legal provisions on the criteria for retrenchment of employees as stipulated in the Employment Act. So what is a legal position on the criteria? Where an employee is a member of the union, you have to notify the union that their member is going home. Where an employee is not a member of the union, you notify the employee personally in writing and the labor office.
Okay.
Down till point number 8. So guys, thank you so much for taking time to join me during this session. I want to hope and pray and believe that the session was useful in terms of helping us appreciate some of the concepts and dynamics involved in attempting these questions. So I will have another session again on Tuesday morning with the Sunrise class. I'll be revising another paper. So I'll share the link if you are interested, even though you are a member of the evening class, you can join us Tuesday at 6:30 a.m. So that.
Please share the link. Me, I will be waiting.
Okay.
Olimu Asante, this was nice. Some of these questions.
We look at another paper.
If it will take them alone.
I thought it would do justice if I did this paper today and then did it the same on Tuesday in the morning.
Yeah, true.
Or at least if I do now this one, then Tuesday in the morning I look for another one I go through that also is as challenging as this one. Then time allowing, if I'll be available for Friday, we can also look at a different one. Alafu niwe nime nawa mikono. Is that okay?
Mwalimu, recording.
Sorry?
Utaweka recording?
Yes, I will. I will do that.
Asante mwalimu.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was great.
Yes. Very good, Asante.
Thank
It
you.
was extended, but I hope it was worth it.
Very worth it.
Extremely.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Barikiwa. Bye, mwalimu.
Asante. Now, you guys were to rate the facilitators. We were being told to remind you. There is some, in the platform, there is a questionnaire. You guys are to rate the facilitators. Don't forget.
Okay, mwalimu.
Okay. Then.
Mwalimu, we will rate you once we are done at the end of the month. So that you don't disappear.
The last day actually, mwalimu, yesterday was the last day for rating. Like, I think, welcome make 18th. Yes.
On a lighter note, that is.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, stop twisting, mwalimu.
I withdraw.
Okay, guys.
That was a good one.
Again next, God willing, on Tuesday in the morning.
Okay, mwalimu. Thank
Shukran,
you.
mwalimu, asante.
Asante.
Good evening.